Hi there. Today we are going to make a small mini album featuring the Gatefold Folio album from Uniquely Creative, which is an awesome line out of Australia that we carry here at the store. And we are going to combine some of their dies and their folio album with the Little Celebrations line from 49 and Market, which is a beautiful line for weddings, anniversaries, baby showers, baby's first year, or just anything you want to celebrate. And I'm going to show you how easy this goes together and what a beautiful finished project it is. So I'm going to put a list to all the items I used down in the description for you. All these items are available at the store, and we are going to use Prism cardstock, the Little Celebrations 49 and Market papers. We're going to incorporate some dies, and we're also going to use the laser cuts from Little Celebrations. But I also encourage you, go raise your stash, go find ribbons and buttons and all the little things that we have tucked away in our little drawers to figure out what we can add to make this project truly unique and your own. So if you're ready, let's get started. Okay, I am using 12 by 12 cardstock here. I am using the Prism brand of cardstock. This one is called Dusty Miller, this one is called Lamb's Ear, and this one is Silverleaf Willow, and they coordinate beautifully with this line. Again, you don't need to use this line to create this project because we're just going to go through all the steps together, but I just thought this was such a beautiful project, and I have the perfect person in mind to give it to when it's done. Along with that, we're using the Little Celebrations line by Joanne Bain, which is one of the designers for 49 and Market. And I have 4 pieces of 12 by 12 cardstock here. You're going to use 5 to 6, depending on what pages you cover in cardstock and which you cover in decorative paper. These are a beautiful heavyweight paper that are double-sided. If you're a 49 and Market fan, you already know how great this product is. And if you're new to it, I will tell you that I highly recommend it. Along with that, there is a great coordinating die cut set that comes with every single 49 and Market kit. I do have this. I may add these as some embellishments at the end because they coordinate perfectly. But what I am going to focus on is this laser cut elements by Little Celebrations. I just love all these florals. If you haven't used the laser cut elements before, they are micro perforated. They cut out very, very cleanly, and you've got all these little details, and it's cut right to the edge. There's no white areas that you have to worry about inking or trying to blend into your papers. Along with that, we are using the Gatefold Flip Folio album from Uniquely Creative, which, as I mentioned, is a company from Australia that we are loving these days, and our customers really like it. You can see the layout of it. I'm going to pull it out in a minute, but it's also got a gusseted section, so you can pack it full of photos and memorabilia, and it's got some really fun fold outs that we're going to work on today. So we are using that. To make our lives easier, you can absolutely trace these elements and cut them out using your trimmer and scissors, but Uniquely Creative also has a coordinating die set that works with their flip folios, which we've had since December, and so it cuts out all the pieces for that, as well as it does also work with the Gatefold. If you are doing multiple albums, if you are creating gifts or you really like this style of album, it is absolutely worth the investment to buy the metal dies. I will tell you, it saves you so much time and headache. We are also going to bring in a few of their other dies. I really like this church window that was part of their spring collection, and this one is called their Vintage Clockwork die, and I just thought it the aesthetic just matched so beautifully. So those are the decorative elements that we are using. You're going to need, your regular items. You're going to need your paper trimmer. You're going to need you know, a metal ruler and X-Acto knife. If you like to work that way, you're going to want a wet and dry adhesive. Today I'm using the Art Glitter Glue, and I am using a variety of the Sukwang tapes, and I've got them in this great custom 3D printed holder that we sell here at the store. I've got some ribbons, I've got my brayer, and who knows what else I'll find as we get going. So I'm going to pull out the album, I'm going to go through the pieces, and we're going to start the assembly process. All right, the Gatefold album is out of its covering. I'm going to show you all the bits and pieces and how we start to put this together. My best tip for putting this album together is doing all your prep first and then doing the assembly. Whether you're tracing and cutting or whether you're using the die cut, the cuts that match up to the album, that is just going to save you so much time and aggravation and plan. So the best way to do that is, as you are opening up, you can see I have numbered each page for myself. And then that way, when I prep everything and I cut everything, it's all going to match up the way I want it to. Because you also want to think about what pattern's going to be on the front, what pattern's going to be on the back, how this is all going to arrange together. And then as I am cutting all my pieces and putting my pieces together, I can also match things up. So there, I've put a 2. There, my 2 is going to match up for myself. And as I am looking at my papers, I'm also looking at what elements I want on that page. So keeping in mind that this is a 6x8, I believe it is, album, it makes it really easy to work with 12x12 paper, because you're just cutting it in half, which makes it easy to go through your die cut machine. But you can see I'm looking at what elements I want featured on each individual page. So you can also cut your pages 6 inches vertically and then have those to kind of flip and move around, because you've got something that you want on the left side here, on the right side here, and then you can adjust, and then all these scrap pieces will fit into the album as you go along. Now that I've assembled the pieces and laid them kind of out on the gatefold, it's a little bit easier for you to see what I'm talking about and how, you know, you can decide what elements you want featured and then how they're all going to lay out as they're going to fold back open as you unflip the album and as you close it. So I am actually going to start assembling my center first, keeping in mind that, you know, you can feel free to sand these pages if you want a more vintage look, or ink these pages, or, you know, you could ink the edges of your folio to blend them in a bit more. But for this particular project, I want a very clean look. So I am just keeping that nice little white. The die cuts actually leave a little bit of a space around them, which is really, gives you a nice little mat around them. So I am going to start with number 9. And so again, I marked it for myself, but you can see I could have gone this way if I'd wanted, right? And that would give me a different look. So I'm going to use my Art Glitter Glue. When I'm constructing, I do like to use liquid adhesive. I like that bond. Plus, I also like the opportunity that if it doesn't go exactly where I want it, I have the chance to give it another shot. But, you know, use whatever glue is most convenient for you, what you're comfortable with. And I go just, you know, 1/8 of an inch or so inside my line. That way, when I squish it down, it's not going to spit out, but it's going to go right to my edge. Also, when you're constructing, make sure you get some glue in the center. Otherwise, when it dries, you may have that little air pocket and it'll feel like a bit of a bubble. So I'm going to just flip that over and I'm going to line it up for myself. Now it might be a little bit hard for you to see, so I'm going to put this here. And you can see I've kind of centered it for myself. Now I'm going to take a brayer. I really like a brayer when I am doing construction because that gives me nice even pressure all the way through, and I can get right to my edges because you really don't want anything lifting. And now I've got a nice solid bond there. So I'm going to do the same thing on my other bottom flap. And, you know, I always find glue, adhesives, those are always kind of a personal preference. And I just encourage you to use what you like to use. There's no right or wrong. I have 2 or 3 liquid glues that I use on a regular basis. I'm just going to make sure that's square. And when I'm happy with that, whoops, just going to give it a little bit of love there. And that's already stuck down. So you can see it's starting to take shape already. So I'm going to open this up. This is number 4. I've matched up number 4 again. You know, I could have had elements here. A lot of customers get intimidated by patterns that are really involved. And I always say, look at it as a half sheet, as a quarter sheet, you know, have a look at it and figure out, you know, what parts you want featured, whether you're making a card, whether you're doing a scrapbook layout, however you're putting it together. And I'm starting from the inside, which is going to make sense in a little while. This particular line I find has so much shading and different grades in the paper that I don't feel the need to ink it. Anybody who's taken a class with me or seen some of the samples that I have on display in the store, you'll know I like to ink. But in this case, I think it's just nice and clean just with the gatefold. So these gatefold albums come in black and in white. So if you wanted something a little more formal looking, maybe not with this line, you could certainly go with the black album and you would get a very different look. The flip folios come in craft, white, and black. The original ones did not have the expanded gusset, and I was so happy when Uniquely Creative decided to add that as an element to their albums, because it really did make it very bulky and bulgy a little bit when you started putting photos and things in. And you can see why I like glue, because I like a second shot at things. So let me just look. That's looking more square. There we go. So it's going to work out pretty quick. I'm going to flip these open now. Now it's up to you. You could also cut decorative or cardstock pieces for the top. I'm going to leave this plain, but I am going to work on my 2 back pieces. So 7 and 8, which I didn't number, but I'm pretty sure I did them like that. The other nice part about the flip folio dies is they give you this beautiful kind of stitched finished edge to it as well. And it's hard to see on camera, but there is a very defined fold line here on both sides. And all I did for the cardstock is I took these 3 colors, which I thought worked so beautifully with the decorative paper, and I just kind of mixed and matched them. Let's just get that. So just make sure that you're well inside your score lines, because otherwise you're going to have trouble when you're putting it all back together. There we go. And I also cut out of, which way did these go? This way. Oh. I cut 2 pieces for a waterfall. Again, these are out of the folio dies, but you could certainly use your folio album as a template. But now you can see that I'm getting this beautiful waterfall effect, which we're going to put together in a little while. Let's add this piece. Makes it a little easier to see once I start putting the pages down for you. And you can see how quickly it goes together. Once you build the base of it, then you really get into the fun where you start, you know, adding accents and ribbons and fun little embellishments. All right, so this is number 5. Slide this over so you can see it. And it did take a little bit of time. So allow yourself the time to decide how you want your pages to be assembled. But you can see that then it goes together really, really quickly. Just want that to be straight. Drop it down a little. There we go. You can see how beautifully these prism papers coordinate with this line. So I'm going to finish my last insert on the inside, and then we're going to go to the outside. The outside's a little bit trickier because we are going to be looking at the actual assembly and the closures of things, and we're going to be adding some things. So this is number 2. There's my number 2. So now you can see how this is going to go together. It's just so pretty. So say you're a guest at a wedding and you want to give the bride and groom, but more the bride, something special to hold some of her candid photos in after. How lovely would this be instead of a card? And it would be something she would have that she could just put in her purse to show friends pictures from her wedding, or maybe it's a special anniversary. And again, you could cut the 2 pieces for the inside flap if you want those to fold down. The other option with this is you can, and I may do this on this one, is actually adhere the sides so that it creates a pocket, which I think we're gonna do with this one. So I'm just gonna gather the rest of my papers and we're gonna continue. Okay, before we start on the outside, I want to do one last thing, and that is to prepare my pages to create my waterfall. So I'm using a scoreboard here. You could use a scoring blade on your trimmer, whatever works for you. So I've got my bone folder and my scoring board, and I am just going to make a score. Whoop. About 1/2 inch here. And I'm going to do it to all of them. Now this one is European, so it's scoring it at 1 centimeter for me, which is fine. And I'm going to just do all my pieces at once. Whoop. There we go. All right, so that can get put to the side, and I am going to match up with my tape. You want it to be as close as possible to the width of your piece, just for the most secure bond. I'm liking this little tape holder. It makes things very quick and easy. We just got them in the store. I haven't really had a lot of time to play with it, but they've been super popular. I think they keep things organized on your desk really well. There we go. All right, let's set that aside. Let's bring our folio back in. just look. So see, you can see that I've done kind of a mix and match pattern here. So I want to move this one over here so I get a little bit of variation here, and I'm going to use these other two here. So to help myself out, I am going to actually just rescore on the folding and give it a quick fold. So it's a nice sharp fold with my bone folder. And then I am going to match. There's all kinds of ways to do waterfalls. This is one way. This is one way that I use. And I am going to just match that up. I'm going to give myself a little bit of room. I'm going to actually match it to the stitching line. And this is always a go big or go home moment for me. It's slightly crooked, but I'm going to live with that. And then I'm going to give this a quick fold and give it a pull. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to butt this one up to the other one. And let's see if I can get this one straight. And this, my friends, is why I use liquid glue. There we go. Aha! Okay. And it just fits perfectly down there so that that flap can go up. So that side's done. Let's do the same on this side. We have another little embellishment and insert that we are going to add to this side of the album, but I'm going to do that after we do the back. Let's see if I can do a better job lining this one up. Hey, not bad. Another tip I have is always stand right over your work, which is hard to do with the camera because, again, this one is not square, but the person I'm making for is going to love it anyways. It's all good. There, so I have all my base inside pieces done. So now we can flip this around and work on the back. So I have my number 1 piece here. You can see even as it's opening, it's just so pretty. And my number 6 piece here. And then I thought I cut 2 back pieces. I have 1 for sure. Ah, I did. Okay. So these ones I can adhere down. Yes, I can do that. It's the back I want to have in consideration. So let's adhere this down. I'm thinking as I'm working. So if I'm pausing, it's because I'm just making sure that when I get down to it, I'm not ripping up something. And trying to prevent you from having to do that as well. I have learned when I buy decorative paper, I always buy 2. Because Saturday night, in the wee hours of the evening when you're working on a project, is typically when you will make a mistake. The paper will be upside down. Something crazy is going to happen to it. And for the purposes of filming, it was much easier to prep all these papers in advance. Again, you know, you could work page by page and assemble it that way for yourself. I just find that if you kind of put it together as a kit for yourself, it's going to make it a lot easier when it comes to the assembly part and the decision making is all done. So let's just give that a little bend. There we go. Okay. There. So there is our album. I would, if I were to do this again, I'd probably give the spine a little fold, just so I get a little bit more rigid spine on that. Now, looking at that spine, that's just given me pause. I think I might cover it in washi tape. So I'm gonna go look at my washi tape stash and come back. While I was in my stash, finding some washi tape. And again, it doesn't really matter what the design of the washi tape is. I wanted something plain because all I want to do is cover the spine. I decided that I would take my bone folder and I just rescored all my gusset folds because I wanted it a little bit sharper and cleaner as opposed to more of a rounded edge. And you're going to see why in a little bit. So I opened it right up. I scored along both of these lines and as well as my spine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just, I took a length of my washi tape. And again, the idea is that you're actually not even going to see this. It's just going to cover it up. So you're not going to necessarily see all of the detail on this tape. This is a Willow and Grace is the name of the tape. It is a uniquely creative tape. And I am just going to put it here. And it's really just to give this a nice finished edge. Oops. Pull that up. Let it rub down. Cut that for myself. You can see it just finishes that edge, and now I'm going to wrap it, which is one of the reasons I scored it. So it gives it a nice clean edge. And now it's going to go around that side. If you had lots of washi tape, you could even cover this with washi tape. That would look pretty awesome, I would think. The other thing I did is I cut myself. Now, I probably cut way too much. I would say you need at least 3 feet for your closure. Let's see, yeah, I cut way too much. So I cut, I think, 3.5 feet or so. This is 6 inches wide. You probably need 2 to 3 feet of a ribbon. I picked kind of a pale chiffon ribbon. You could use, this is what it would look like with a white chiffon. This is with a little bit more of a grosgrain. You could use a lace. You're going to get a different effect depending on the one that you chose. But I really liked that this picked up, it has a bit of shimmer and it picked up the this kind of gray green that's in the paper. And again, this is just out of my stash. It's nothing special. It's something I've had for a long, long time. So the front of the book, I'm going to adhere straight down, just like I've done all these other pieces. I know, isn't it fun watching me glue? I say to my students, you know how to cut and glue. But it's all part of the process. So let's flip that down. Now I'm going to smooth it. If I want to brayer it, I will probably have to open it right up. Probably put enough glue that I don't have to worry about it. And now you can see how the washi tape just finished that edge for myself. There's no right or wrong. You can leave it plain if you like. I just wanted a little bit more finished edge to it. There we go. All right, so now for the back, I'm just going to fold my ribbon in half. Although I have so much that I don't have to be too concerned. I'm going to flip it over. You would use a glue dot or a bit of glue if you're worried about it being centered. But again, because I have so much extra ribbon, I'm not worried. I could center it. That's probably a good idea. So this is 8 inches. Oh, I was pretty close. We're going to put it right at the 4-inch mark there. And what I'm going to do, just to help myself out a little bit, is I'm actually going to use my fingers, like wrapping a gift. I'm just going to put a little line of glue here so that I get really good adhesion between the glue and the paper. So that's nothing sliding around after the fact. And then I've just used, you know, scrapbook papers, we call it like an A side and a B side. There's the main designer page, that's often the one that the barcode is on, and then there's the B side. I liked this B side because I've got sum of all the colors that I'm using. And so you can see, you know, it always seems like a shame that people always say, I never know what side to cut. To which my answer is, well, buy two and then you don't have to worry about it. But sometimes it just makes it easy to coordinate it as you are putting it together, because the designers do all the hard work for you. I want this gray at the top. I'm going to match it up. There we go. So I don't know how long we've been doing this, maybe 20 minutes. You've got the main part of your book assembled. How great is that? It's a nice, quick, easy project. And then this will just come around to the front and we'll tie up, but we're not done just yet. So I'm going to pull the rest of my pieces, and now we can start all the fun additions of our pullouts and our embellishments. We're now ready to start the beginning of our album. So we've, affixed our ribbon. We've got that ready to be our tie. So included in your kit is this great little, it's actually a 4x5.5 accordion. You could have it tucked into one of the pockets, but I'm actually inspired by another idea that I saw, and I'm actually going to affix it to my front cover. Now, because I'm affixing it to the front cover, I don't need to cover the back. So what I need is 7 panels of 4x5.5. And I actually trimmed the 4-inch side to 3 7/8. I just took 1/8 of an inch so that I have that same spacing that I have on the cut folio dies. You go right to the edge, you can leave a little space, it's really up to you. And what I used is I used all my little cut-off pieces from cutting all my pieces for my 6x8 folio, because they're all 4 inches. So I now have 7 extra pieces that I can mix and match. So another little tip is my trimmer blade is starting to get dull. And so when it gets dull, it leaves these tiny little fuzzies on here that are always kind of a pain. So I just take a sanding block, or you could take a nail file. It depends on the grit of your nail file, how it works. And I just take all those little fuzzies away. Now, it may take, 49 Market has a white core, so it may expose the white core, and that's okay, because with this particular line, it actually looks like part of the paper and part of the design. So you could even go in deeper and really accent those. When you do that, if you're inking, because that coating is gone and it's raw paper, you're going to find the ink really, really absorbs. So just be careful and test on a scrap piece before you do that. So I decided that I just kind of mocked up my album here. I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way. That's going to go right there. You could center it, but I kind of think it's interesting. I really don't want to lose this element on the page. So I'm going to actually center it there. And so that is going to be my first piece. And you can see I've just left a tiny little bit of a mat all the way around. So because you don't need to see me gluing and cutting and pasting, I'm going to glue all my pieces down, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to embellish and adhere it. There, I've done all the boring part, and I've got my little 4x5.5 accordion all ready to go. I thought ahead and I marked my back piece so I didn't cover it and waste a piece of paper, but you can see this is now going to open right up. And you've got 2 sides for lots of fun extra pieces. The other thing I did, and it was kind of a happy accident, was I've got the same floral on the front and the back. You could add another ribbon if you wanted to tie this up, but the reason I did this is because it's all going to tie up together. So I want to show you what I'm going to do to decorate the front of this little mini accordion, because to me I'm going to use it for a wedding themed. I have a wedding next month, and I thought this was going to be a beautiful little gift for the bride. So I wanted to use the window, which is one of the metal dies from Uniquely Creative. I believe we still have stock in the store. And I think we can still order them if you're looking for it. It's great for baptisms, weddings. You could make it a stained glass window at Christmas. I just think it's so beautiful, and the detail is really lovely. I want to add an extra element though, because I'm going to put a layer of vellum underneath it just to kind of soften it a bit, so we're not just adhering, see the difference? We're not just adhering the window to the front of our little mini album. Now, how did I do that? Well, I cut out my window and I poked out all my pieces and I got my die cut ready, but then I was left with the perfect stencil template to draw onto my vellum, and then I can hand cut my element inside. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to this. I'm just going to dot it. Now, when you've got fine work like this, I like to work in all my little corners, different pieces that I think it's going to attach, especially because it's on the cover. If you like sticky sheets or things like that, that's another really great way to work with really fine die cuts like this. I just find if I catch all my bigger elements here, it's going to adhere just fine. And if you're worried about getting your fingers stuck in it, you can always use reverse tweezers to flip it upside down, but I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to match it up. I'm not going to worry about that little bit of glue that spurted out. There we go. And again, we're going to use some of the laser cut elements to build a really pretty cluster around this too. So if you've got a little bit of extra glue, you don't need to be too concerned about it. When you're using glue with vellum on a light colored paper, you really don't have a lot of bleed through. It's going to show up a lot more if you're using it on a dark paper. So just keep that in mind, and then you know, you can use physical things like brads or things like that to adhere it down, or I just like to put the glue where you can't see it. That's always my solution to it. So now I'm just, oh, I can see where it didn't catch here. So I'm going to just lift that up and give it a little more glue. There's a fine line between being too aggressive with your glue and it not sticking. All right, I think we're going to be good there. And again, I'm going to off center this. I'm going to use this edge as my line, and I'm going to put it right about there. I've got a little bit of glue leaking out, but again, I am going to cover that up with some embellishments. So now you can see how it's starting to build together. It's truly elegant. I'm very excited with how it's coming together. And now I can stick the back down. But again, it doesn't have to be part of the cover. It could be a fold out from the middle of your album. The nice part about these is that you can absolutely customize them to be whatever you want them to be. I am in a mad hunt for my ruler at the moment. There we go. I'm just going to put it there just so I can see approximately where I want it. I was actually not too far off. And now I'm going to turn it to the side so I can see. And again, I'm going to, utilize these stitching lines on the die to help me square this piece up. You could draw yourself a little template too. There we go. And now you'll be able to see that when I tie it, I can probably trim it now. You can see I left way too much ribbon for myself. I'm going to utilize that on another project. There we go. And again, I just love how that little bit of glisten picks up. I'm not a big sparkly girl, but I really like that elegant aspect to it. Now, if you cut your ribbon at an angle, you're going to have less fray, but if you're worried about it fraying, clear nail polish is a great way to just touch it and prevent it from any further fraying. Okay, so I am pretty happy with that. I am now going to start with my laser cut elements and build the inside of the album. So these are the laser cut elements from the Little Celebrations pack. So 49 and Market typically does a laser cut element sheet, maybe even 2, depending on the collection. And they all are color coordinated to the theme, and the elements are a little bit different for each collection, as far as even the 2 within each collection. So this is the Little Celebrations one. There's a companion line to this called Little Dreamers, which is a little more baby focused. So this one kind of runs in the middle, and it focuses on all the wonderful things that we celebrate in life, or that we have to celebrate in life. So it comes with 4 sheets, 4 6x12 sheets. So you can see one of my best tips is don't punch them all out. There are so many fine details in these that if you punch them all out and put them in an envelope because you think you're being very organized, what you're going to find is that they are going to bend. They're easy enough to bend and glue back down, but you might be really disappointed by that. What I did want to show you is how easy they're micro perforated in just little spots, and they just come out like that, and you can see how clean and how fine the detail is on them. So I'm a huge fan. I really like them. I think I'm going to take this little balloon out. I think that's kind of a fun element that will go with this. We're working on something, we want it to be fun and elegant. So here's the balloons. You can see those will just pop out for me. Just be really careful when you get to these fine edges. They're plain on the back, so really easy to work with. That's all kind of birthday, so I'm not sure I'm going to use any of that. So I think I'm good with elements on this. I also have the die cut pack, which I don't have with me at the moment, but when I do the final walkthrough of the book, I may add some of those pieces. The other 6x12 sheet is all florals, and it's everything from, just kind of little bits of greener foliage and, beads. Like this is like dried, looks almost like rose hips. And I'm sure it's been inspired by something in someone's garden. I'm just going to pop that piece out. But you can see how fine and detailed that is. I think that's going to be beautiful on the album. You can see how the colors all coordinate together. And you've got butterflies and flowers, feathers, individual flowers. So there's lots and lots to choose from. They're really good value. I use them on multiple projects. So I just picked a few to get me started. I also pulled some of the champagne rhinestones from Uniquely Creative, but this is the perfect time to go raid your stash. Look at what you already have. I'm sure you have, if you're like me, you have baskets of ribbons and little bits of things, leftover pieces from other projects. Go find your stickles, your liquid pearls. There's just so many wonderful things that you can add to an album like this. So what I'm going to focus on right now is we're going to actually build a cluster for the corner of this this die cut, this little album page. So I cut out one of the feathers. I'm going to start building from the bottom. When I use a liquid glue, I can tuck after the fact as well, but I have a specific look I'm going to go for here. So I'm going to take the edge of that off, and I'm just going to run that off the corner, and I'm going to set that down. So that's going to be my first piece, and we're just going to build from here. Now, I could also use foam squares on this if I wanted to, just to have a little bit more dimension, but I am going to leave it flat today. Just going to look at where do I want this leaf to come. So start with your center point. This little flower is going to be my focal point. So can you see how it's building? And it mirrors this piece right here. I'm gonna cut the edge of this seed pod or blossom down there. So I'm building that. When you have these finer pieces, especially when they are on the outside of your album, make sure that you've got all your edges, because otherwise it's gonna, just from handling, you're gonna lose that piece. But you can see by finding my center spot, it's easy to build. And my flower, there it is. But you could absolutely do a foam square on this flower. That would give you even more dimension. You can see even just, I'll show you once it's down, I am getting a little bit of elevation right there, just from all the different layers of the die cuts. And so for this particular project, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I want a little bluebird of happiness to be resting on this church window. So I am going to just have it landing right there. Just make sure that that's all secure for yourself. And that's really all there is to building a cluster. But you can see how we're starting to, create a story. So now we've got our ribbon. You could use, I'm just thinking, where would I like to use one of these, where you've got the pearlized effect. You can add some gemstones. So this is going to be a bit of a work in progress for me, and I'll show you everything at the end of the video so you can see how I was inspired and how I put these things together. But just look at this. The wedding I'm going to is a farm wedding. You could have that on the front. I'm going to use that on an inside page. So I'm going to look at all my pages. I'm going to start to assemble my embellishments. The other thing I have, these are by Prima Marketing. They are frames and they coordinate perfectly with this collection. So I'm going to put some of those in my pages. And there's one more thing that I want to show you before I do the embellishment and the final walkthrough for you. So the other piece that comes in your Gatefold Folio is this pull-out hexagon, right? 6 hexagon. So if I wanted it to be a pullout, I could put it in the center, but I could have adhered it inside one of these, and it could have pulled out if that's what I wanted it to do. I can have it where it's on its own, and I can have it tuck in here. What I am going to do with it today is we're going to create a belly band on one of these two sides. I haven't decided yet, probably this side. Yes. And I'm just going to tuck it in there, and it's going to be another pull out. So again, go back to your scraps. Maybe it's a cardstock scrap, maybe it's a decorative paper scrap, and look at what you have left after you cut all your pieces to see what you want to do. The other thing you could do is create a pocket in here, and it could slide here. You could cut another piece of decorative. It could just tuck. I mean, again, you can customize this, and this could be whatever you want. This could be an actual match to the paper, and you could cut that piece and then tuck it in. So I haven't decided exactly how it's gonna go, but I'm gonna do the finishing, and when I come back, I'm gonna show you the completed album. And here we are after many hours of placing elements and deciding exactly how I wanted to embellish this album. That's always kind of the fun part. The construction's one part of the project, and then figuring out how to make it come to life is another part of it. So we're gonna walk through it together. It's probably 90% done. I think once I add photos to it, there's still going to be some embellishments I want to add, but I've left lots of space for journaling and photos and memorabilia. So Again, this is the closure that we created. I've left extra ribbon on this specifically because you can already see how much bulkier the project is now that it's almost done. Once you start adding your photos and other keepsakes inside, you're going to want to leave that space so you can get a nice big bow. So once it's done, that's when I would trim the tails for it. So here's our first page with our beautiful cathedral window with our vellum overlay underneath it and our little cluster, a little bit of rhinestones. I've added this fun pull tab that will allow you to open it right up. Our little accordion, our 4x6 accordion on the front. I'm going to just slide this over and open it up. I left these pages really plain, just the decorative at the moment, because I'm not really sure what's going to go on them yet. And then open them up. Here, I took one of the die cuts from Little Celebrations. You could use a piece of decorative paper and cut yourself a strip. And I created a little belly band here, and then inside put a little 4x6 folio with room for a couple of photos, and then again just used my scraps. I typically don't get rid of anything until after I'm done a project because I never know where there's going to be a little piece of something that's going to be just the right fit for the project. So now let's move back over and open up our waterfalls. So here I've created a frame. I've left a space right now so that I can tuck a photo inside, but maybe it's a poem, or maybe it's a little letter to the person that you're giving this to, or memories if it's for yourself, memories of what, that day meant to you or that event meant to you. And then again, I've left these plain at the moment. You could easily put a couple or layer some photos in here. You could put photos or sentiments on the back of it. So this one I've left plain, ready to, put some memories inside it. You could put a button here. You could create a folio closure if you wanted. You could use magnets if you wanted to hold it in place. Again, there's no end to how you can customize this to make it your own. But I did have some fun here. I only glued the top of the die cuts here so that there is room, you can see underneath, to slide a mat underneath so that we can add photos or again, some sort of recollection. So there is a space here. It's not going to work now because I want to show you, for that to fit underneath there. So there's still lots of room there for that. I've put a little embellishment here so that it becomes a pull tab to open it up. Again, there's space here. You could easily mat some photos for that. But here's the surprise. We're going to pull this waterfall up, and I've used the hexagon fold out. I took one of the elements off it so that there's only 3, and I've created this fun little triptych open up accordion fold book. And all I did was, I had glue here. There's going to be room for some embellishments there, I think. A little glue came out. I was not being patient as I was finishing this. So I'll be adding a couple of things to fix that little mess up there. But I just simply used the actual hexagons from the album to trace on my leftover decorative paper. So, and then the front of this, I used the ribbon tie and used just some ribbon that I had, and then I gotta tie that. I created a tag that can slide up and down. So there's a little interactive element there. Once you decided if you really wanted it up higher or down lower, depending on what you wanted to do with that, you could affix it down as well. And there you go. There's the project in a nutshell. I would say realistically, it's a 2 evening or a weekend project, start to finish with photos and all of that. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to use a collection of coordinating papers and dies, which we tend to buy and then, save for a very special occasion. And I can't think of a better occasion than this beautiful Gatefold Folio album from Uniquely Creative. So hope you enjoy the project. Links to all the products will be in the description, and we'll see you in the store soon. Take care.